Okay, so welcome to the watercolor class. This is a 2-week session, and it's this week and next week. In this session, what I thought we could talk about is the beautiful fall colors. And as you know, I just went on a trip to Canada, and in this trip, I saw some beautiful, gorgeous colorway. When I got there, it was like almost 4 weeks ago, and the colors were in bloom. It was beautiful. And then when I left a week ago, it was all gone. There were maybe a few yellow leaves left, but the rest was all gone. So, but the next day when I got here last Sunday, so I got here on Sunday night, and on Monday morning when I saw my yard, I went, oh my God.
Yeah, they've been beautiful.
The colors are here. So that's why I decided that today we would do colors. And in preparation for that, what I did is I did a little slideshow that I will share with you. But before I show you the slideshow, I'm going to show you what we're going to do today and well, this week and next week. So we will first do a drawing of this, and then we will paint it. So the slideshow, maybe if I could put it a little bigger. Yes. So first we will draw it in black and white in our book, and then we will transfer it and paint it. But before we do this, as a little exercise, we're going to have some fun with colors. So we're just going to paint one leaf and put it in, paint it the same color in both cases. But what we're going to put around will be different in each case. Then we'll talk about that. So now I'm going to share my screen and show you what I have prepared that will help with our classes. Oops. Share. Okay. So I'm going to put that down here. I think this is good. So watercolor class with fall landscape in phases. So first what I have, here it is, yes, is I took photos of leaves. So you can see the red leaf, the orange and yellow leaf, and the yellow leaf here. So when you look at these leaves, the one that seems to pop the most is the one in the center. And why is that?
Because of the back?
Because of the background. Yes, the background is a very high contrast. It's much darker than the leaf, so that's why it pops so well. In this case, the yellow leaf here is surrounded by brown and yellow leaves. So all of this together is very harmonious. But our leaf that's in the middle, especially that it's on the back side of the leaf, does not pop at all because of, you know, everything that's around it. The red leaf here has a little bit of everything around it. It pops a little bit because it's quite dark compared to most colors around it, but it still appears to be very harmonious because it's red and yellow and brown and orange, maybe a little bit of white. Whereas here in the middle with this yellow and orange leaf, we have a black background. It was just a pavement. And so therefore, it's a high contrast, but the background can't really say that it's very harmonious with the leaf. All right, so what I did is I did a little slideshow that will show you the different steps to come to our landscape, starting with the drawing. So we're going to do the drawing together. This is all something we're going to do together. So we're going to do the drawing together. So you have here on the left, you have those trees that will be like in the foreground, and some other trees here that are on the right, also in the foreground. So here in the middle, this line delimits the water at the bottom from the mountains in the sky at the top. So that I have two different mountains. You don't have to make them two. You can just make it one if it's too complex for you. So, and here I have these little pine trees that I put on top of these other trees. If this is too complex, don't include them. So this is meant for a simple drawing that for more advanced people, you can bring it forward and make it more complex. You can add clouds in the sky. You can add some nice reflection here of the yellow trees. But if you want to keep it simple, then there is also a way to keep it simple, mostly for beginners in watercolor. All right, so this is the drawing, quite simple. We'll do it together. So then from the drawing, I did this black and white study. And unfortunately, there was something else on the page afterwards, and it shows this line here. But oh well. So you have the mountain here in the back. This one here is darker, and then the one that's here is all yellow leaf trees, so that's why it's lighter. This is the portion at the bottom is all of the water and the reflection in the water. Part of the water is very light, and this represents an area of the water where there is wind, a sideways wind. So there's a little bit of a ripple at the top of the water, and it makes it a lot lighter than the rest of the reflection, the rest of the water that's below here. And you have those evergreens that are on this side that are very dark. And then the sky. So we'll do that together. Then when we start painting it, I kind of try to represent the different steps, but I painted those dark trees on the left a little too early. I should have done the mountain in the back. But just to show you the different steps. So the sky, first when we paint the sky, we paint it very light because we can come back after and make it darker if we need to. And a very light version of this portion of the water. It looks somewhat dark because there's still white paper, but you'll see we'll have to make it even darker later. And this bottom portion is, it's the reflection of these mountains that are yellow. So first, just a layer of yellow throughout the whole thing. And then after that, we can put some detail. So the next step is the mountain in the back, somewhat purpley mountain. And you'll see in the end, I will do something else with that. But this is the mountain in the back. Then the whole section with the yellow trees. And I even put this section here on the right, yellow. And then I'll just paint on top with a darker color. So you can see here what I was talking about, the darker color. I just put it on top, and even though I had yellow under, still looks good. And I started painting this section, which is a reflection of everything in the water. And see here, this middle portion, it looks white. Although earlier, it looked so much darker. And so in this one here, I decided that this purple mountain in the back that we have here, this purple mountain is the only place where we have purple in this whole painting, and it made it it broke the harmony of the colors. So I went on top, and I'm going to mute someone here because I'm hearing some noises. It went on top of I muted myself, sorry. Okay, so just to get back to our demonstration. So this area here that was purple, I thought it was not harmonious with the rest. So I covered it, and at the same time, I made this yellow area with all the yellow trees a little higher. And in certain areas, like here and closer to the water, I lifted the previous color I had because I wanted this to be a little lighter. Then what I did is I went over this section with more of a green color. So if I go back, see this color is more like a turquoise color. And I went with another layer on top to make it more green. And now it's very harmonious. Everything is very harmonious. I also added some orange, like more of a orangey color down back here, and in certain areas also some additional light green to give it definition. And here I went over the sky. So if I go back one, see the sky is very light. So when I go over the sky, now we can read the cloud much better. And also I shaped those trees a little bit more. So I added a little bit of green in this background mountain to define certain trees, not everywhere and not too equally. And here, see the water here, this section, I repainted it. So if I go here, you can see the water now is lighter than this dark sky here. Now, in reality, it's extremely rare in nature that the water that reflects the sky is lighter than the sky. So I've darkened this water like this by putting a little bit of purpley color in the background coming to blue towards the front. And now it almost looks like there's a line here, and it's kind of like, I don't know what's happening. It looks funny, this reflection of these trees, these yellow trees here and the darker ones here. So what I did is I put some more definition, and then I made this sky in this area even darker because I darkened this section, and now it reads better. So if I go back one, and then I come back here, it looks better like this. And I also lifted certain areas like here and over here because this like little ripple that is over the water. And I also darkened this area of the water here on the right. So you guys are gonna paint this beautiful painting yourselves. Any questions? So you can unmute yourself if you have any questions. I'm still recording it. You have a question, Pam?
Nope.
Okay. All right. So first things first, I think I would like to start with doing our drawing. So I'm going to stop the recording. I'm going to stop my share actually. Stop my share first. And stop the recording or pause the recording. Oops, resume. Yes. So now to draw this, what we did is we prepared a paper and marked it 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Same thing here, 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3. So it's 4 inches this way because my paper is 12 inches wide, 3 inches this way because the paper is 9 inches tall. The first part that we're going to do is we're going to indicate where this water is. So this is where the water is down here, and this is the forest in the background. All of this is all the forest in the background. So this line is where the forest meets the water. And this line, we will put it at 1/3 up. So this marker that you have here, you can do a line that goes all the way across to this other line. So I'm going to try to make this straight, even though it's hard to do it sideways. Okay, it's approximately straight. Maybe. So for now, we're doing this from one end of the paper to the other end. We will erase certain parts of this line later. So this is the first step. Once this is done, what we want to put on our paper now is this line. So this line here represents a line in the water where this section here, all this section has a side wind on the water. So there are ripples, and that's why this portion of the water will be much lighter with no reflection on it. Whereas this section of the water will be where we'll see all of the reflections from the faraway forest and from also from the evergreens here and these trees as well. So this other line, here it's quite far away from this line. We're not going to make it as low. So we're going to put it like maybe not even 1 inch below the first line that we did. So about here. Like so. All right. And some of you might be tempted to use a ruler to do this. If you really cannot draw a straight line, then I guess you could, but it makes it a lot more interesting if you hand draw it, like freehand draw. All right, now that we have this zone defined, we're going to add this little grouping of trees. So the bottom part of these trees is lined up with this line we just made, and this is lined up with actually the 1/3 line. So this is where my 1/3 point is. So I go here, and so it's going to start right here, and there's just a little bit of land like this, and then I put my first tree. That goes back up here, a little higher like this. And it ends, it's actually, it could be a little bit better like this. Like so. So this is the 2/3 line. It doesn't even go as high as that. And it finishes going down this way, maybe 1 inch lower, more or less. Can you see okay? Yeah. Just going to make sure that it appears good so you guys can see it. All right. So now we can already see that this line here is not needed, this section of the line, so you can erase it. Oops. Not a good idea. Okay, this might be better. All right, now that we've done that, we're going to draw the trees that are this big section, not the little evergreens that are inside, just this big section. And this section is somewhere between these two lines. This is where it is. And it also is close to the 1/3, but a little bit more to the right of it. So this is my 1/3 that I want to go a little bit to the right of it. So I will start about here. And this tree really goes up immediately. In terms of height, it's not quite as high as this one. So this one's about this high. So my other one will be maybe a little lower. You can put a little mark. So this is how it will go. And then down. And then up again. Like this. All right. So you can put this, this is the other grouping. And the bottom part is not quite a straight line. So it goes straight for a little bit and then it goes down a little bit. This is very tricky to do it sideways. There, this is better. All right, so now we have the ripple of the water here. We have the reflection of the water that will be this whole section. We've put the evergreens here and this other grouping of trees. And now we realize we don't need this line here, so you can erase it. There. Okay. All righty then. Now, if I'm going too fast, please let me know. I'm going to assume, if I don't hear from you guys, that you're all caught up and you're good to go for the next step. All right, so the next step will be, we'll put the mountain in the back. So we'll first start to delimit the sky from the mountain. So we're going to do this line here, this one. And you can give it a little bit of a wave and you can create your own wave. What's important is don't make it too symmetrical. For example, sometimes we're tempted to go up in the middle and down on the other side. That might be like that in nature, but to make the painting interesting, you want to break this rhythm and give it a little bit of symmetry. So that's why the top of the mountain is about where the 1/3 mark is, and it goes down and doesn't completely go back up. So this one, my 1/3, and this, whoops, sorry. So this is the mark that shows 1/3 down. It's a little bit higher than that. So 1/3 is here, and it's a little bit higher than my mark. So my mark would be here. And 1/3 is about here. So this is probably where the top of the mountain could be. It's a little higher than I put it there. I mean, you guys will do it slightly different, but it's okay that everybody does the same. So it goes from here down, and then from here down, it dips, and then it goes back up a little bit, like so. So if you are a beginner and you don't want to have too much detail, you don't have to put the other mountain that's here. You can keep it like this, because remember, you'll have to trace this, put it on your watercolor paper, and then we will paint it. And if you have two different zones, you want to have you want to have it painted as two different colors. But if you don't want to, you can just keep it like this and will still be beautiful. But for those who are more advanced, now we're going to put this line here. So this line basically, I think when I painted it, I realized I didn't want to put it too close to this line. So we're going to put it from here, going straight and then up a little bit, and then straight and going up a lot. So it gives something interesting for the eye to look at. So, and now I realize maybe this is a little bit too much equal to this. So maybe I want to vary it a little bit. Maybe I'll go like this. There. All right. Now, in the sky, we will put a cloud when we paint it. But for now, we will not indicate where the cloud will be because this is something that we'll have fun with the medium to do so, because we're going to do this wet on wet. And before we put these evergreens here, what I'd like us to do is I'd like us to put the reflection of the evergreens down here in the water. So these are the evergreens. Now, when painting a reflection, to make it believable, it's really important that your reflection is in line, so that the tip of the tree should be lined up perfectly over here, and the tip here should also lined up here. We will probably not have the room to do all of this because I need this lower. So you just do your reflection. One way to do the reflection to make it really good, and in order to learn how to do a reflection, you can use tracing paper, trace this, and then just flip it like this because it's a mirror image, and trace it here. But we'll just attempt to do it freehand for now. And on this drawing, the edges are very sharp in a reflection, but in reality, and when we'll paint it, the edges will not be this sharp. And sometimes a reflection is shorter or taller than the actual object, depending on how far we stand from it, how high we see it. If we see it this way or this way, this will all make the shape of the shadow, the reflection, vary. So this is for this one. Now for this reflection, there's a little bit of a trick here because you can see it better on this example. So there is this section here where the reflection doesn't show because there is a ripple on the water. So when painting or when drawing the reflection, you have to account for this part of the reflection, and then start there. You can't really, this portion of the reflection will not appear. Oops. So this is what I recommend you do to be able to do this reflection correctly. So I recommend you start here. So this is, again, this is a mirror reflection like this. That should start here like this. Should be in line. Go like this. And it goes like this, and then it goes like this. And once you've done this, in this section, erase this part because this is a part that will not reflect just because there is ripple in the water in this section. So if you're a beginner and you don't want to complexify things too much, then you don't have to put these other trees here, because then they reflect here. It makes it even harder. Or you can do it if you'd like. I'm sure Gretchen has already drawn those beautiful evergreen trees. In my case, I'm not going to do them. Now, just so you have a good reference, let's look at the final product that we'll get. So this is what we'll have. So we have the trees here that we have drawn, its reflection, those trees, its reflection. And then we have the two mountains. For some, maybe you only did one mountain. It will still look beautiful. The reflection of that. We're not drawing the specifics of the reflection of these, but instead we'll have some fun and do wet on wet down here. And in the sky, we did a big zone, and this cloud, we will do it once we are painting. So there's no point in pre-drawing it. All right. I'm going to stop the recording now so that if you have any questions, you have a chance to ask me your questions. I'm recording. Okay. And I'm going to show you, I think it's this one here. Yes. So this is an example of where the dark is dark, where the mid-tone, and where the lightest light is. Now remember, when doing the drawing, try to save the paper for the lightest light. Use a 4B or a 6B, whichever darkest pencil you have for the darkest dark. And the mid-tone, you can just use the HB or something like that. So I would recommend start by indicating the darkest dark, and make sure to save the paper where it's really light. Meanwhile, I'm going to take a photo of my painting, and then I'll bring that on the screen in black and white, and that'll give you a better idea. Okay. Any questions on how to start? I'm going to pause the recording then. So I'm going to share my screen back to my little slideshow, because I want to show you the leaves. So if we focus on this one here, the black one, and I'm going to make it bigger. So you can see how the leaf is basically, it's got one very tall leaf in the middle. Or is this called a leaf? Or is this called, what is this called, this part of the leaf? Mrs. the teacher, Gretchen, would you know what this is?
You know, I don't know.
Okay. So
Is it the pinnacle?
maybe let's call it a pinnacle. All right. So it's got one tall pinnacle here and two medium size on either side, and then two smaller ones down here. It's not that important that you make your leaf exactly like this, or that you put all the little pointy things like this. This is how I had done the leaf for the exercise. So I just did, you know, one that's in the middle, one on either side, and two more here. And they're basically same size. If you think of one of those maple cookies. That's pretty much the shape that I drew. The purpose here of this exercise is to do one leaf that is a nice red-orange color, and do the same red-orange on either side, and then do a different background for each. And the objective is to appreciate how, if you put the complementary color, how the leaf will vibrate compared to the background. Whereas if you put a very harmonious color, a color that is very close on the color wheel to the actual color of the wheel of the leaf, then in this case, the leaf will blend more with the background. So when you're painting trees or leaves, it all depends on what you want to do. If you want it to pop more, then you got to go with more of a background that is like this. If you don't want it to pop too much, then you go with something like this. All right. So preparing the colors that we are going to prepare are, at this time, are only our red, alizarin crimson, and the yellow, the Canyon Yellow Medium. And then we'll prepare the blue a little later. Because we'll only start by doing the leaf at this time. So you want to use a fairly big brush. I'm going to use this one. And actually, I'm going to switch and highlight my iPad so that you can see what I'm trying to draw. I think this will be better. Yes. Okay. So in terms of preparing the colors, I already have some colors prepared, but see in this one here has got some dried up alizarin crimson, and I dip my brush in the water, and I just go like this. You can see it's very watery, but the more you do it, then the more it creates the liquid. Now, if I show you, I'm gonna use some of the paint from my tube that I'm gonna put into the well to show you what I mean by mixing the color. So this here, I just squeezed it out of my tube, so it's still wet. So what I do is I dip my brush into the water, and I just go like this to dilute it. And you can tell it's diluting pretty easily because it's all wet. Now I'm going to mix it with everything else that I had there. So I dip it into this water that I have here. That's very much pigmenty. And if I had a test strip somewhere, I will go get a test strip. I'm going to use the back of this. So now I'm just going to show you how pigmenty it is. Do you see how dark it is? So that means that it's very, very pigmenty and maybe a little bit too much. So I just dip my brush into the water just like this. So I just dip it like this without shaking it. And now, using this water, I add it to my well. And as I add it, I can see it's very, very, very dark. So that's good. So now, if I were to test it again, it would probably be a little less dark. Yeah, it's a little less dark because I added some water, but it's still a very good darkness. All right. I hope this helped, but I still will do a little recording. Now, to do this red-orange that we want to do for the leaf, then what you want to do is you want to use some of this water, some of this color, that is the alizarin crimson, and add some of your yellow cadmium medium to it. So now I'm cleaning my brush completely. And I'm going to add, so you can either squeeze a little bit in your well, or I have some alizarin crimson here, some cadmium yellow medium in this other well that's already washed, that's already watered down. So I'm going to add some of this to my red to get a nice red-orange, which is what I want. And actually, I don't have enough, quite enough red, so I'm going to squeeze some in. All right, so once you have the color that you want, it could be a little bit more orangey, a little bit more red. So we're trying to do red-orange. Now I load up the brush with paint, and this is a nice brush because it has a lot of paint. And I'm going to do a leaf. I'm just going to freehand do it. So the leaf is about like this, the shape of the leaf. So that's the main one. The main pentacle. And then I have another one here. Yeah, think of one of those maple cookies. That's a good way to do it. And then this other one. See how much pigment there is? All right, it's not the best leaf ever, but I have my leaf. And I want to paint the same leaf right here with the same color. So I hope you prepared sufficient color for both. So about the same. This is not so much about the shape of the leaf, it's about mixing those colors that we're going to use in a landscape, and also it's about how it's going to appear once you paint the background. So I hope, Pam, you have more success with your color this time. But the secret is to do it and do it and do it. The more you do it, the more you'll get used to it, to doing it. I personally like a book that I've been reading, and it shows how when you paint with the paint out of the tube in watercolor, when the paint is still wet, you can actually paint with a palette knife. And I've been reading about this, and it's like, wow, I want to try that. Of course, you guys know that watercolor is a very expensive medium, and so therefore doing that is something that will cost money, but something fun to do, especially with paper that is called rough paper. With rough paper, the paper has a very texture, and so therefore if you paint with a palette knife, even with watercolor, I'm going to put it flat so it dries. So if you paint with watercolor that is still wet on a rough paper, you'll be able to do water that has some waves in it, for example. I'm just removing a little bit of the excess. Okay. So I'm gonna pause record. So as you can see on this example, I did put the little, you know, the little veins that you see in the leaves, but I did this at the end after I put the background, because if you want to have a sharp line for those veins, then the red orange has to be completely dry. So if you do it while it's still wet, it's going to blend, and it's not going to do what you want, and the veins are not going to be nice and sharp. So we're going to save that for the end. And now, in my case, I think it's dry enough so that I can paint the background. Now, if your leaves are not quite dry enough, then you probably want to wait a little bit longer. And while we are waiting, now is your chance to prepare your blue, because you'll want to do a green. So if you use the cerulean blue, like we did before, so I'm going to do the cerulean blue, this color here, and I'm going to put some water in it because it's all dried up now. And once this is done, then I'm going to add some yellow, the Canyon medium yellow, or Canyon yellow medium, I should say, sorry. And then I'll be ready to do my green. You also want to prepare a nice lighter orange, because these leaves we painted red orange. Now you want to have some nice yellow ochre and orange that we'll use to do the background on one side, and the other one will do green. So if you have any questions on how to prepare the orange and how to prepare the yellow ochre, or how to prepare the green, let me know. If not, then we'll do that. I'm going to stop the recording for this part. All right, so using my yellow, or my Indian yellow and my orange, I'm going to first paint around the first leaf with those colors. So to do this, I'm going to, maybe I made this orange a little bit too red. Okay, to do this, I should have my orange ready, which I thought was ready, but I made it too red. Okay, so I'm going to use my orange and my Indian yellow, one color at a time. And so I dip my brush completely into the paint. Now I have too much pigment on this. Okay. And I just paint around the leaf. Because the paint will run down as I'm painting, I'm gonna turn the paper around. So now this is the orange. Now I'm going to use a little bit of yellow, Indian yellow, which is lighter, as you can see. But I didn't clean my brush because these two colors are very close, very harmonious. And so therefore, I just use what's on my brush. So this is my Indian yellow still. And as I come around here, I'm going to use my orange. You can see the orange is a little darker. I'm being very careful not to. Oh no. Okay. I'm being very careful not to leave any white between the background and the leaf. And I'm using a lot of paint there. So that's for the orange and the Indian yellow. You can tell where the Indian yellow, where I use that one because it doesn't have as much pigment and it's not as dark. Now I completely wash my brush. Oops. And now I'm going to dip into my green that I prepared. Now, if you prepared your green a while ago, it's not a bad idea to remix it all up because it tends to, the pigment tend to separate. And you can tell that my green is a little bit more watery than my orange was. You can already tell how this, with the background that is the opposite, the complementary color, you can tell how the leaf is popping a lot more. Here I add a little bit of yellow to my green to make it more of a lime green. You can do that or not, it's up to you. Just having some fun with those colors. So it's very simple. But it's also an exercise to, you know, get back into painting. For some of you, you haven't painted for a while or haven't used this medium for a while, So it's a good exercise to do that with instead of immediately diving into the landscape. So there. Now I've done all of this, and you can tell how this color is very watery, the green, as opposed to see how the orange, I had a lot of pigment in it. In order to get to something like this, then in some areas, once it was dry, I went over it one more time in certain areas to make it more intense, and I used more pigment. So that's the fun about this. Also, you can tell on here that my red orange had even more red than on this one, I just made it now. So I could go one more layer on here. And, oh, I want to show you something that happened. It also happened on my original. See how this in here, let me move this out of the way. Can you tell how the orange paint ran over the red here?
Mhm.
So I can just put it flat on the table and add a little bit more of my red orange. I don't even know if I still have it, but yeah, right there. And I can just add to this. Because remember, this is just an exercise, so even if it runs, see, you can fix it. It's not like it's a piece that you will hang in a museum one day. So this is the exercise, and I guess this is what I'm assigning for you to do in your homework, as your homework. And it should give something like this. At the end, you can, once everything is dry, you can add the veins, and the veins are made with mixing the red orange with the green. It gives a nice brown. Any
Nice.
questions on any of that?
Nope.